Okay, good evening, everybody. Thank you for joining us. We're continuing the Ayin. We're in Parshat Noach. We're in the first piece in this week's Parsha that begins v'chafarta oisa mibayis umibachutz b'koifer. HaKadosh Baruch Hu tells Noach to build a teva, and he tells him you shall seal the inside and the outside with koifer. Translation of koifer is generally tar, a type of pitch, a lime, in order to seal out the waters from entering the teva. The Ayin is going to learn from this pasuk one of the classic mahalchim, the classic outlook in Avodas Hashem, specifically when it comes to the approach of using gashmius with ruchnius. Right? Normally we think that gashmius is antithesis to ruchnius, which is in a sense true. The more gashmius you have, the harder it is to be ruchnius. But on the other hand, we do know that in order to facilitate many mitzvahs, we need gashmias, right? You need tefillin to be gashmias. Lulav is gashmias, is physical, right? The body needs certain physical needs in order to function properly, in order to be able to learn. So what's the approach in how to mesh the physical and the ruchnias together to serve Hashem in the right way? So hatam isa b'medrash. What is the reason that the teva needed to be coated both sides with this kaifer pitch? There's many different pshatim. One is in Bereshis Rabbah. As we mentioned, the Parshat pshat is to prevent the waters from entering, right? It needed like a double seal, the inside and the outside, especially the waters were hot and were strong. And in Mela, it was done to protect the people and the animals inside the teva. However, the Ayin says also a pisoid is a secret. That the word koifer is also a play on the word of kapara, as it says that when we used to collect the half a shekel to count Klal Yisrael, it says v'nosnu ish koifer nafshay. Each person shall give a half a shekel as in a koifer, as a kapara. What does that mean? We can explain according to the following mainly Hasidic outlook, but also the Torah Hashkafa outlook. The Hine Iker Avdus Hashem, the Iker in Avdus Hashem, who be Chol Derochecho De Doehu. You should know Hashem in all your ways, in all aspects of life. It always has to be with the idea, I'm using this to serve Hashem. Heim bechinas ruchnis, when it comes to ruchnis, which is somewhat easy to understand. Heim bechinas gashmis, and also in gashmis, all of our intentions and all of our things that we do, whether it's eating, sleeping, exercising, working, all of these things have to be in order to serve Hashem. Kirvas Hashem li toiv is the ikr approach and the ikr outlook that every yid has to have. Why am I eating? I'm eating in order to have strength to learn, to serve Hashem, to do mitzvahs, to go to minyan. Why am I sleeping? I'm sleeping in order to have koyach, in order to have strength and clear of mind to learn, to do mitzvahs, to go to minyan, to daven. Why do I go to work? I go to work in order to support my family, to send my kids to yeshivas, to be able to do mitzvahs, chesed, to be able to buy things, Shabbos, all these things. With that approach elevates, as we're going to see, the physical to ruchnis. Lahachnas hakol tachas rishus hayochid yichida shel halam. The purpose is to take all the things that the world has to give us, whether it's in ruchnis, whether it's in gashmis, and to bring it all under the dominion of Hashem. La'aved Hashem b'shneim, to serve Hashem in both ways. Hein b'gashmis, b'chinas gvura. Now gashmis is also a concept of gvura. Now gvura doesn't only mean strength, it could also mean strictness. But also it's called tabas olam hazeh, when we do all the desires of this world. Machiloi, eating, shtia, kadoimi, mitzracha v'achrechem, you masehu, all the taivas that we have should always be as a medium, as a way to facilitate, to serve Hashem, right? We get hungry and we want certain foods. Now it's true that really you should try to limit how much taivas you have and how much food you have, as it says, kadesh lach b'mutalach, be mekadesh yourself in things that are permitted to you. Right? There's nothing wrong with eating a steak. There's nothing wrong with eating foods you like, as long as you're doing it in a normal way, with the idea that I'm using it to serve Hashem. V'zehu b'chinas das. Now comes a tremendous yisoid, a tremendous concept in Hasidus and Kabbalah, that this idea of taking the physical and making it and with Ruchnius together is called das. As we know, there's Chachma, Bina, Das. There's 10 spheres. 3 of the spheres are Chachma, Bina, Das. These are the intellectual spheres, right? Lubavitch is known as Chabad because the Tanya focuses on how to serve Hashem through intelligence of Chachma, Bina, Das. Chachma basically means you now got knowledge, right? You have a problem. So how do you solve the problem? So you first need information. Once you get the information, then there's Bina. Okay, I understand. Now I got the information. Now I have to understand the information. Once I have the wisdom and the Havana to understand it, I can now process the information, for a lack of a better word, and I can use the information with the understanding of how the information works and create a solution. That's called Das. Das is understanding, is more than understanding, is the ability to take information with understanding and provide results. And therefore, this concept of taking the physical and the ruchnis is called das, hischaber chesed v'gvura, k'shemeyachid u'mechaber b'chinas gashmis u'b'chinas ruchnis. When you take the gashmis and you connect it with the ruchnis, when you take food and you take eating and you use it as a vehicle, as a medium to serve Hashem, right? Why do I work to have money? Why do I have money to give tzedakah, to buy lulav and esrog, to buy tefillin, to buy Torah, to hire someone to teach my children or myself to learn, to buy gemaras, to buy svarim, to do chesed, to have food on the table for my family, for myself, in order to strengthen myself to learn Torah. All these things, when you do it in that manner, right? Very simple. You could take a cup of coffee. You're very tired, or your mind is not so focused because you're tired. You take a cup of coffee in order to strengthen yourself, or a drink, or a little walk around the block, and now you sit down and you learn. You've elevated the physical and you've made it into ruchnis. And we're going to see how that works in a more detailed manner in a second. Ultimately, we have to overcome all of our desires of pleasure in this world. That's true, we have to eat, and we have to drink, and we have to sleep. We shouldn't love to do it. We should understand that we're doing it in order to serve Hashem. And when you do with that outlook, and with that method of doing it to serve Hashem, our ultimate purpose is that there should only be one ahava in our hearts, and that is ahavas of Hashem. Right? Le'ehoi ves Hashem. V'yahavtas Hashem. B'chol levavcha, b'chol miyodecha, as it says, with your heart, your money, everything we have to do, everything that we have in this world is a dugma to, right? Is an example for us to use to love Hashem. I'm going crazy for this piece of steak. Are you going crazy for Toisus? Are you going crazy for Gemara? Are you going crazy for tzedakah? Right? You have two friends or husband and wife that have a tremendous ahava for each other. That is a ideal for us to use in the service of Hashem, and so on and so forth. Right? Many tzaddikim would eat in order they could be able to make brachos. Right? Why do we build a sukkah? So we can be in the sukkah. Why do we eat in the sukkah? So we can be yotzeh, the mitzvah of eating in the sukkah. Not necessarily I'm hungry, but there's a special mitzvah to eat in the sukkah. And kedoymim, machmas goydel hamedur b'levavoi, the great fire in our heart, which should channel the normal desires that a person has, each lefi yitzirasoi. V'chemda azek harush be'esh al heves Hashem, Hashem moicha v'libo kshuma mitzumtzum ahavas Hashem. Eich yerev lo shum dovz lo. So when a person gets to a level of true ahavas Hashem, nothing else interests him. Tzaddikim, when they were learning Torah, when they were involved in mitzvahs, they had no concept of time, they have no concept of food. Like lahavdil, as a marshal, when a person is very involved in work, whether he has a problem or sale, he can come out of work, he doesn't remember if he ate. Most of the times I hear from people, I was so involved in my work today, I don't even remember where I parked. It took me 5 minutes just to find my car. Right? But when it comes to learning, people don't understand this concept of being so involved in learning, you don't know where you are. Reb Chaim Brisk, many times they said that he would sit and concentrate on a sugya for 6 hours, And when he came out of his reverie, when he came out of the sugya, he was like, what are these things on my shoulders? Like he didn't even know what his arms were. He was so lost. He was such in a different world that he didn't even know where he was. Now it's true that, right, we are not necessarily in that levels, but we should understand that there is a level like that, and we can see it in the physical world. And also, furthermore, what he eats is only his need. He shouldn't be hungry, and he should have koiches to learn. He should eat to have a healthy body, to give him the ability to serve Hashem. And here comes an important rule, says the Basayin. Everything that you do has to, as an outcome, as a function, to be used, as we mentioned before, kirvas Hashem litoif. Is the thing I'm doing bringing me closer to Hashem or further away from Hashem? Right? Now, sometimes it's a little hard to know. So sometimes you need that starter. Sometimes you need, a little bit more of your own saying, 5 more minutes to sleep. Is it really 5 minutes to sleep because you want to have more strength or because you really want to sleep? Right? And so on and so forth. Yeah, we all have to exercise. And whatever the amount of exercise that we have to do in order to keep our bodies healthy. But, some people can exercise for 3-4 hours also. That's already too much. But you're going to be healthy, yeah, but you don't need to be that healthy, right? Yeah, it's good to eat meat. It's good to eat chicken. You have to have 4 pieces of chicken. Again, sometimes some people do. Some people need the nutrition. They have deficiencies. So again, each kefiyah chaltai. The litmus test is this thing going to help me serve Hashem or not? Is it bringing me closer to Hashem or not? If you overstuff yourself, more likely than not, you're not going to end up learning more. You're going to end up falling asleep. And so on and so forth. Now, sometimes a person is exceedingly tired after work. He needs to rest for 20 minutes to half an hour in order for him to go to the shir. So that's bringing him closer to Hashem. It's Parshat. Because if he goes to the shir and he's completely wiped out, he's not going to be able to learn. So putting your head down for 20 minutes, that's a mitzvah. That brings you closer to Hashem. When you have this outlook and your whole hashkafa is, what I'm doing is serving Hashem, and you do that, that's in all your ways you learn to Hashem, right? So there's a concept in Torah called bituloi zehu kiyumai, right? We're humans. Sometimes we need a break. We need a rest. Sometimes, right? You go out with the family a little bit, right? Why? Not necessarily because I want to see the world. That's also a part of it. But really, ultimately, is I need a break. There's a lot of pressures at work, a lot of pressures in the house. And you do it in a way to relieve the tension, and that allows you the next days to have a chizik in learning, a chizik in serving Hashem. That's very important. So it comes out, the Basayin teaches us a fundamental idea in avodas Hashem. Everything that we do, befrat, especially when it comes to physical desires, should all be channeled to love Hashem, to serve Hashem, with the goal, with the ma'bat, that it should bring me closer to Hashem. The intention is I'm not doing this to enjoy myself. It's true, if I have a good piece of steak, right? I'll enjoy it, a good piece of chicken, or good dinner, or good breakfast. But ultimately, the main purpose, and obviously the greater the tzaddik you are, the greater your kirvas Hashem is, the less you will enjoy the food, the more you will use it as a method to serve Hashem. Right? Great tzaddikim didn't care if I had 4 sauces with the steak or with the chicken, or 0 sauces. Right? Some tzaddikim could eat the same foods every night. Ravon Leib for many years had eggplants, breakfast, lunch, and supper. That's what he could afford. Right? But he needed it in order to serve Hashem. There was a story that there was a time that Reb Chaim felt very weak, and they came to the conclusion that he wasn't getting enough nutrients, and it was stirring his learning. So he added certain foods to help. Now for him, he didn't know what it was. As we all know, he used to ask, is this mazoinos? Is this shahakol? Is this adama? And when he would want more, he would say, I need more of the adama food, right? Or more of the mazoinos foods. He didn't even know what it was. Right? They once asked him about avocados. He says he doesn't know what an avocado is. He says, what do you mean? How do you not know what an avocado is? So it doesn't say anywhere in the Torah, so I don't know what it is. Right? Obviously, that's a great level, and we should strive. We should understand that there's a level. The point is that ultimately, all of our desires and outlook should all be geared towards Hashem. All your clothing should always be white. And in all times, even when you're working in Olam Hazeh, when you're doing gashmis and things for your body, you kavanas Hashem Hashem. L'chaber bechinas ruchnis bechinas loivin elyon shu bechinas chesed, bechinas gashmis shu bechinas gevura. To connect the ruchnis, which is white, to the gashmis, which is black, and put it together. V'zehu ikar bechinas das, and that is the main concept of das. Like we mentioned before, das is when you take the chachma and bina and you process it to come to a solution or to come to something to help you move forward. This is also hinted in the Chosam HaKadosh Baruch Hu, which is emes. The word emes is aleph to beis, and the word emes has aleph, mem, and saf, which is you mechaber the aleph through the saf. And when you do that, you come to Hashem. And it's important for all of us to focus all of our actions to serve Hashem. Excuse me, the Pasuk Eila told us Noach, Shiroshe Tevis Eila told us Noach is Gematria Emes Yud. The Ois Yud is Kedusha, which is, we know that you can't have a minyan less than 10. Once you have 10 Yidden together, you have Kedusha. When you take all of the physical stuff and you turn it into Kedusha, you elevate all the sparks and all the Kedusha that's in those foods, and you raise it up to Hashem. This is a fundamental concept in Yiddishkeit, in Chassidus it's brought down a lot, the Balatani talks about it a lot, and the Bas Ayin throughout his Chidushim talks about this idea, right? When we drink, and we take the coffee that wakes us up and we use it to learn, so we now elevate, right, the spark that keeps the coffee being alive. If there's no holiness, there will be no coffee bean. If there's no holiness, there will be no milk. There's milk inside the Kedusha inside the holiness. The only way it can reconnect back to its source is if we use it for Kedusha. Noach. Why does it say Noach twice? Why? Physical and ruchnis. Noach b'ila, Noach b'tata. Filu b'tata, in the lower worlds of Gashmis, when you use it together with Kedusha, we elevate it back to its source. Right? When in order for us to be Mekayim the mitzvah of Tillin, we need physical stuff. We need physical skin from the animals. Right? We need the leather. There's Kedusha in that leather. And every time we do the mitzvah of Lulav, we connect the Kedusha that's in the Tefillin to its source in Shemayim. Like there's an eschabru v'nesiyachadu shnei habechinas chesed v'gvura v'nimteku hagvuras. V'zeh habechina mechuna b'shem koifer. This concept is hinted in the word koifer, like we started off this piece. Oisius chav vav par. Chav vav is a remes to kedusha. Par is a remes to gevura, to dinam. And therefore, when we take the chav vav, which is kedusha, right, which is Havaya, and we connect it to Par, we raise up the physical stuff into Kedusha, and we continue the concept of the world. And that is the Teva's Noach. Noach's Teva was built for one purpose, in order to keep the world going. And Noach had to do a lot of physical stuff in the mikveh, in the Teva. And therefore, that is all connected to this idea of meshing, of combining the ruchnius and the gashmius in order to raise it up. That's why we had 3 levels. The first level, which is the bottom level, to the top level, which is chesed, gvura, and das. And all the actions that Noach did was done in order to facilitate the connection of physical and gashmius. And the proof that it worked, this is maybe my own little ha'ara, is that when Noach sent out the Yoina, they didn't want to do any work on Shabbos. Why? Because the entire Teva was one big shtick of Kedusha that was done with the feeding of the animals. It all was ingrained into the animals, this idea of Kedusha, of mitzvahs, of Ahavas Hashem, and it spread and had impacted on everybody. And even though Noach took something physical like koifer and tar, that was done in order to elevate the Teva to be a Merkava, in order to continue Hashem's Shechina from the physical world to the Ruchnistic world.